Alright, in this demonstration I'm going to show how to design a window using the Eclipse Window Designer. First I'm going to create a new class. We're going to call this the main frame, and we're going to have it inherit from JFrame. That gives us just an empty class like this. Now I'm going to close this window, right click and choose Open with Window Builder Editor. This will now give us a design tab that allows us to do what you see is what you get designing on the window. I'm going to begin by double-clicking the file name to give us a little bit more real estate to work with. I'm going to expand the window here, and I'm going to change the content pane's layout from border layout to absolute layout. This will allow us to put the components wherever we want to and not have to mess around with layout managers. It does mean, though, that we're going to have to precisely size and position the components, and because Java is not going to do it for us. And when we do that, we want to allow a little bit of extra space. This is something that you would do for a prototype, but not for a production kind of application. So this is sort of quick and dirty prototyping use that we're doing here. So I've positioned a label component and a text entry component. And if you look at the Source tab, you can see the code that it's written to do that. It's defined a label, it's defined a text field. I'd actually like to rename the text field so that it's something better than text field. I can do that either here in the code. I can come in here and do a refactor rename and call it text name. And that code change then will be picked up in the designer. If I click on this component, you can see that it's changed the name here. Or if I changed it here to text username and press enter, that change will then be picked up in the Source tab. So this is two-way design we're working on here. Now, to get this thing to actually preview, I can right-click and choose Test Preview, and we can see what it will look like at runtime. To actually get it to run, I'm going to switch over to this other file that I've already written, and I've got some code here that will instantiate that frame, set its size, and make it visible. I can choose Run as Java Application and then have the thing show up as an actual running application. Now let's go back to the frame and add some behavior. I'm going to add a button here. When I put the button on here, I want to notice how as I move the component, you get these little dashed lines that show up that help you to align the button. I want the button to be right aligned with the component up here, and I'm going to type in greet. This sets the text property of the button. If I want to change the text property later, I can come down here. You can select components either here or over here. I'm going to come down here and change it to greet me, and that changes the button label. And I'm going to add another label component, and this one I don't want to have any text show up initially. Oops. And it looks like the label's gone. It's still there, it's just not showing up. I'll switch back to the Design tab here. I've selected the label, and I want this to be nice and big so that it'll handle whatever text I want to put into it at design time. I mean at runtime. Then I'm going to add an event handler for the button. I'm going to right click on the button and choose Add Event Handler, and I want an action performed event. This is the event that occurs when a button is clicked. And it adds the code down here to do that event. And rather than handling the event right in here, I'm going to create a new method called button greet clicked. Just a little bit better code style to separate out the event handling. Of course, that's not a method down there, and I could define it manually, or I can ask Eclipse to define that method for me. So here's button greet clicked. Now what I want to do here is I want to take the text that's in this text username field and get that into a variable. So string username equals text username dot get text, and I want to put that into this label component that I put down on the lower part. So I'm going to rename this to be label message, and I want to define this as an instance variable. So I'm going to come up here and just define it as an instance variable, get rid of the data type here so that we're now instantiating that instance variable. And then that message, I'm going to change its text property to be a little greeting with the user's name. Now I should be able to run the program again. So I'm going to come over here, right click, run as Java application. I'm going to put in a name and click greet me, and there comes the message down there. So that shows you how to create a quick little Java GUI application writing very little code.